Hello students, our lesson today is on contextual clues. I am Mufida Irshad and I am attached to the Business Communication Unit. I have divided this lesson into sessions. In session 1, I will be outlining the objectives of this lesson and telling you what context clues are. In session 2, I will show you the major types of context clues and discuss the definition, explanation, context clue. In session 3, we will be looking at synonym clues. In session 4, we will be looking at antonym or contrast clues and comparison clues. In session 5, example clues. In session 6, punctuation clues. In session 7, inference clues. In session 8, cause and effect clues and word paths or affixes clues. In session 9, we'll be doing some practice activities. I will be uploading these activities to LMS also. And then in session 10, we'll be discussing the answers. And finally, in session 11, we'll be reflecting on the lesson. Right, you must be wondering why I have divided this lesson into sessions. The reason why I have divided the lesson into sessions is for easy reference. So, for instance, if you are not sure as to what inference clues are, all you have to do is to watch session 7. All right, let's move on to session 1 now. First and foremost, let me spell out the learning objectives. By the end of this lesson, you will be able to deduce or to figure out the meaning of unfamiliar words, phrases in texts written or printed using context clues. You will also be able to use different types of contextual clues to read a text more effectively. Tell me, what do you do when you come across a difficult word while you're reading? Do you look it up in the dictionary? Search for its meaning on the internet? Or ignore the word and continue reading? Write your answer in the chat box. I'll give you pause the video and write the answer in the chat box. I hope you have written your answer in the chat box. Right, please note, if you are reading to get a general idea of what the writer is saying, that is skimming the text to understand the main points, you're already familiar with the terms skimming, scanning, aren't you? Because we have done a lesson on skimming and scanning. So I'm sure you're familiar with the terms skimming and scanning. So if you're reading to get a general idea of what the writer is saying, that is skimming the text to understand the main points, you don't need to know the meaning of every word. Remember, you don't need to know the meaning of every word. If you're reading for specific information or scanning the text, you only need to, remember, you only need to know the words that are connected to the answer you're looking for. But if you are reading for details, that is reading for understanding, then you actually do need to know what each word means. Please keep that in mind. Did you know that you can usually work out the meaning of most unfamiliar words from context clues? You must be wondering what context clues are, right? All right, let us now try and understand what context clues are and how to figure out the meaning of difficult words using them. What are context clues? Do you know what context means in the first place? It's a word. The context can be a word or a set of words that surrounds another word, phrase, or sentence. It's the surrounding, right? Whatever that surrounds a word is its context. What are clues then? Clues are hints that the author gives you to figure out the meaning of the difficult or unknown word. Look at this example. Say, for instance, if the unfamiliar word or the word is dynamic, those words that come before dynamic and the ones that come after dynamic could be considered context. So the context of dynamics is, or dynamic is this as well as this. I'll use a picture to show you what context means, and to tell you why it is important, why it is useful to know to use context clues. Can you tell me what this is? Look at it, stare at it all day long, wonder what it is, and I don't think you will still be able to figure out what it is. I'm sure you're going to have a difficult time figuring out what it is, isn't it? Well, do you think it will help to see the picture's context? What is around this picture? That is, use context clues to identify what this picture is. Yes? Okay, I'm going to show you the context now of this picture, to emphasize on the fact that context matters. This is the picture. This is what it is. You can see how useful context clues are, can't you? When you see what is around a picture or a word, you get a clear idea of what it is or what it means. That is why it is important to know what the major types of context clues are and how to use them to interpret the meaning of unfamiliar words. This picture also shows you how important context is, because it helps us understand the full meaning of what someone is saying or reading. What happens if we do not consider the context? Say you see only this part of the picture, or you are shown only this frame. You will only see a certain section of the idea or the picture. So in order to understand the whole picture or the idea, or what the writer is trying to convey, you need to know the context. So context matters. Please keep that in mind. I have come to the end of this session. Let me end this session by reminding you once again what context clues are. They are words, phrases, expressions, sentences, paragraphs that help you figure out or understand the meaning of difficult words in texts. All right, so you know what context clues are right now? Well, next time you come across a difficult word while reading for understanding, first see if you can figure out the meaning from context. Okay? All right. So we have come to the end of session 1. See you in session 2. Thank you. Dear students, this is session 2 of the lesson on context clues. Before we continue, can you tell me what you learned in session 1? Yes, you're right. You learned what context clues are and why it is useful to know how to use them. Now that you have a basic understanding of what context clues are and why it is useful to know how to use them, let us now take a look at some major types of context clues that you can use to improve your comprehension skills. Some of the major types of context clues are definition clues, synonym clues, antonym clues, comparison and contrast clues, example clues, punctuation clues, and general inference or logical reasoning clues. It's helpful to be familiar with them Therefore, let's go through them together. The first type of context clue that we are going to learn is about definition or explanation context clue. Have you heard of the word definition before? I'm sure you have. What are definition clues then? You are familiar with the term definition, aren't you? In this sentence, you will notice that the writer has defined who a leader is. How did we deduce it? You might have noticed that the writer has used the verb to be, in this case is, to signal the definition, right? So the signal word here is, or the clue given by the writer is to define who a leader is. And this is the definition or the explanation that the writer has given. So a leader is the person who leads or commands a group, organization, or country. So this is a definition clue. The writer has given an unfamiliar word. Because you all are management students, I'm sure you understand who a leader is or you know the word. But this is, I just thought I will use familiar terms so that you will understand the concept better. Right? So the word here is leader. The writer has used the signal word is. So the moment you see is, you know that it's a definition, and then he defines the word for you. All right. So this is a definition clue. We know that it's a definition clue because he has used the signal word is, and then he has given an explanation, or he has explained who a leader is. Right. Remember, sometimes authors provide a direct definition of an unknown word in a sentence. The brief definition or restatement, that is restating the word, explaining the word, is usually signaled by a word or words or punctuation marks, right? Some of the words that writers use to signal definition clues are is, are, or is if it's singular, is, if it's plural, are, called, is, are known as, a leader is known as, or leaders are known as. Or another phrase, that a group of words that the writer could use to define or signal a definition is defined as, means, refers to, that is. So these are all signal words or clues that writers use to signal a definition. Sometimes writers also use punctuation marks like commas, dashes, brackets. Right? Sometimes writers use both words and punctuation marks. So look out for these clues, right? These clues will help you understand unfamiliar words better, or you understand your text better. Let us look at another example. The word economy comes from the Greek word oikonomos, which means one who manages a household. What does oikonomos mean? How do we deduce the meaning of the word? Look at the information around the word. Look at the information that is there around the word. Has the writer given us any clues? Yes, he has, hasn't he? Right. What is the clue that the writer has given? He has given signal, he has used signal words. And he has also used punctuation clues. Right? Which means is a signal word which indicates or which signals that it's a definition. And then he has also used punctuation marks here. So what is this clue? What type of clue is it? It's a definition clue. How do you know that it's a definition clue? You know that it's a definition clue because of the signal. The writer has signaled the definition, or he has given clues in the sentence, and this is one of the clues that the writer has given, and he has also used punctuation marks. So what does oikonomous mean? It means one who manages a household. It's a Greek term and it means to manage a household. That is the literal meaning of oikonomous. All right, we have come to the end of session 2 now. What did you learn in this session? Yes, you learned that authors sometimes give a direct definition or an explanation of an unknown word in the sentence, and that the definition and explanation or definition or explanation is usually signaled by either words or punctuation marks or sometimes both. Well, if you still do not understand what definition clues are, please watch the video over and over again until you clearly understand. All right, this is the end of session 2. In session 3, we will be going through together what synonym clues are. Thank you. Take care. Hello, students. This is session 3 of the lesson on contextual clues. In session 2, we looked at definition clues. In this session, we will be looking at synonym clues. What are synonyms? A synonym is a word or phrase that has the same or nearly the same meaning as another word. What then are synonym contextual clues? When a writer uses a similar word to a word for which you might not already know the meaning, we refer to it as synonym clues. Let us look at an example. In this example, the word paucity is a synonym of the word scarcity. How did we deduce it? You might have noticed that the writer has used the words also known as to signal the synonym clue. The writer has also used another clue. Can you guess what it is? Well, the writer also explains what scarcity means. He has used the signal words referred to in order to do so. Thus, in this example, there are two context clues, a synonym clue and a definition clue. Remember, when a writer uses a word having the same or nearly the same meaning as the word for which you might not already know the meaning, we call it synonym context clues. Synonyms can appear in the same sentence or sentences that come before or after. A writer usually uses punctuation marks such as commas, semicolon, dashes, parentheses, and words such as or, that is, in other words, to signal synonym clues. Let us look at another example. What does relocated mean in this sentence? How do we deduce the meaning of the word relocated? Look at the information given around the word. Has the writer given us any clues? He has, hasn't he? Right. In this example, the word move back is a synonym of the word relocated. You might have noticed that the writer has used the signal word or to introduce the alternative idea. The writer has also given us another clue. Can you guess what it is? Not only has the writer used a synonyms clue, but has also explained what relocated means. He has used commas or punctuation clues in order to do so. Thus, in this example also, like the previous example, There are two context clues, aren't there? All right, we have now come to the end of session 3. I hope you now understand what synonym clues are. Remember, when a writer uses a word having the same or nearly the same meaning as the word for which you might not already know the meaning, we call it synonym context clue. In session 4, we will be discussing antonym and comparison contrast context clues. See you soon. Thank you. Hello students. This is session 4 of the lesson on contextual clues. In session 3, we looked at synonym clues, didn't we? In this session, we will be looking at antonym or contrast clues and comparison clues. Do you know what antonyms are? An antonym is a word opposite in meaning to another. For example, good is the antonym of bad. What are antonym clues then? In an antonym context clue or opposite meaning context clue, the writer uses a word or phrase that contrasts the meaning of an unfamiliar with the meaning of a familiar term. On the other hand, in a comparison context clue, the writer compares the meaning of a familiar with the meaning of an unfamiliar term. Let us first look at an example of an antonym or contrast contextual clue to see how it works. Take a minute to read the text. All right. In this example, to move back is an antonym of to remain. How did we deduce it? You might have noticed that the writer has used the signal word or to introduce the antonym clue. The writer has used another clue also. Can you guess what it is? Yes, the explanation clue with commas to explain what relocated means. I'm sure you have by now realized that looking for context clues is one technique that is helpful for readers to understand unfamiliar or difficult words in a text. Let us now look at an example of a comparison contrast contextual clue. Take a minute to read the text. All right. In this example, economists are compared to astronomers and evolutionary biologists and contrasted with physicists. How do we know? You might have noticed that the writer has used the signal word like to introduce the comparison and the signal word by contrast to introduce the contrast clue in fact. By the way, what do the words make do mean? To make do? What do you think it means? Look at the information that comes before and after. Yes, you're right. It has an opposite meaning to generate data. Physicists can generate data. In contrast, economists, like astronomers, have to manage or to make do with whatever data that is available. So you see, in this example, the writer is using comparison and contrast clues to explain his idea. Keep in mind, when a writer uses a word that has the opposite meaning of the unknown word, for example, scarcity, surplus, inflow, outflow, we call it an antonym or contrast clue. Antonym clues can appear in the sentence, in the same sentence or sentences that come before or after. A writer usually uses words such as but, however, although, otherwise, unless, instead of, on the contrary, on the other hand, while, unlike, to signal antonym clues. In a comparison clue, the writer compares the meaning of a familiar word with that of an unfamiliar word. A writer usually uses like, words such as like, as, similar to, in the same way, likewise, resembling, to, also, to signal comparison clues. Comparison clues also can appear in the same sentence or sentences that come before or after. Let us look at another example now. Take a minute to read the example. Right. What do the words reticent and reserved mean in this example? Try to unlock the meaning by looking at the information given around the words. Has the writer given you any clues? He has, hasn't he? In this sentence, the word talkative is the antonym of reticent, and the word outgoing is the antonym of reserved. How did we deduce it? You might have noticed that the writer has used the signal word but to introduce the antonym. I hope you are now familiar with antonym and comparison contrast clues. All right, this is the end of session 4. In session 5, we will be looking at example clues. See you soon. Thank you. Hello, students. This is session 5 of the lesson on contextual clues. In session 4, we looked at antonym or contrast clues and comparison clues. In this session, let's see how example clues work. You are familiar with the word example, aren't you? What do you think are example context clues? In example context clues, the writer gives examples to help you understand what an unknown word means. Let us look at an example clue now. Take a minute to read the text. All right. In this text, the writer has used 2 example clues. He says that markets are physical places and gives us an example to explain what he meant by physical places. He has used the words such as to signal the example clue. In order to explain what he meant by markets are moving online, he has given us several examples. And he uses the word examples to signal the clue. In addition to example clues, the writer has used 2 explanation clues in the text to clarify his points. I hope you noticed that as well. Please note, writers sometimes provide examples to help you understand an unfamiliar word. To signal an example, they use words such as, for example, for instance, including, such as, specifically, to illustrate. Let us look at another example now. Read the text, take a minute and read the text. All right. What are the issues dealt with in microeconomics? See if you can figure out the meaning from the information given in the text. In this text, you will notice that the writer has used examples to explain the issues dealt with in microeconomics. How did you figure it out? You might have noticed that the writer has used the words such as to signal the example clue. So when you are reading, please look out for these clues. All right. This will help you understand the text better. All right. We have now come to the end of session 5. What did you learn in this session? Yes, you learned that writers sometimes use example clues to clarify their ideas, didn't you? All right. Thank you. See you in session 6. Hello, students. This is session 6 of the lesson on contextual clues. In session 5, we looked at example clues. In this session, we will be looking at punctuation clues. What are punctuation clues? They are one of the easiest types of context clues. With punctuation clues, the meaning of the word is explained immediately after the word using one or more punctuation marks. Let's look at an example. Take a minute to read the text. All right. In this sentence, the writer has used punctuation clues to explain what non-rival and non-excludable goods are. How did we deduce the meaning of the words? Yes, we were able to figure out the meanings of the two words from the clues that the writer has given. In this example, the writer has used brackets immediately after each word to explain its meaning. The writer has also used other types of clues in the text to clarify his ideas. What do you think they are? He has explained what public goods are by giving an explanation clue and further clarifies what non-rival goods are by giving an example. Look out for these clues when reading. They will help you read effectively. Please note, when you use punctuation context clues, the meaning of the unfamiliar or difficult word is usually immediately after the word and is often separated by a punctuation mark or punctuation marks. Punctuation clues are usually signaled by commas, dashes, brackets, colon, quotation marks. Let us look at another example now. Can you read this sentence and tell me how you figured out what consumer surplus means? How did you deduce the meaning of the term consumer surplus? Yes, the writer has given us a punctuation clue, hasn't he? The punctuation used here is the dash. The dash used to explain the term consumer surplus. You now know what punctuation clues are, don't you? All right. In session 7, we will be looking at inference clues. Thank you. Hello, students. This is session 7 of the lesson on contextual clues. In session 6, we looked at punctuation clues, didn't we? In this session, let's learn about inference clues. What are inference clues? Sometimes writers do not directly give word meanings in the text. but meanings of unfamiliar words can be assumed by both prior knowledge, that is, what you already know about the subject, and the context in which the word sits. Thus, inferring the meaning of an unfamiliar word based on prior knowledge and information or clues from the text is referred to as inference clues. Watch the video for an explanation of inference clues.
Today is our final lesson on context clues. Hopefully you remember or know what a context clue is at this point. So a context clue is using the meaning within a sentence or surrounding sentences to figure out the meaning of an unknown word. So looking for those clues that help you figure out what a word means when you don't know. There are 5 types of context clues that we looked at. The first was definition, where the author tells you straight out what the word means. The second was a synonym clue, where the author gives an example of a word that means the same as the unknown word. Or an antonym clue, where the author gives a clue that is the opposite of what the unknown word means. Yesterday we did the example clues, where the author will give you an unknown word and then give you examples of the word, and you have to figure out what exactly the word means. And today we're going to work on inferencing clues. So hopefully you remember what an inference is. And an inference is an educated guess. Now, an educated guess is different from any other kind of guess because you actually have to put the pieces together. So if you remember, the 2 things that you need to put together to make an educated guess or an inference is, 1, you need to activate your prior knowledge. So what do you already know about this topic? Maybe it's something you've read or something you have seen in a movie or something you've experienced. Then you're going to add to that what evidence you have actually in the text. Putting those 2 things together, you're going to be able to make a guess about what that unknown word might mean. So making an inference or finding inferences clues is when you combine the experience that you already have with the given situation to make a educated guess about what the word might mean. Because of the limited space, most Twitter posts must be concise. The word I'm trying to define here is concise. They give me some choices. Does concise mean wordy, correct, clear, and brief? Well, I need to activate what I already know about in this sentence. What knowledge do I have? Well, I know about Twitter, send out tweets. So I know that Twitter has to do with writing a message, sending a tweet. I also know that Twitter has a character count limit. So I can't write and write and write. I have to kind of get to the point. So what evidence is provided in the sentence that helps me know what concise might be? Well, it says it has limited space. So when I put all of that together, I'm going to look again at what do I think concise means? Well, it doesn't mean correct because there's nothing about if the information is accurate or not. Anyone can put anything on Twitter. Wordy doesn't work either because wordy means that there's lots of words, but it already tells me that there's limited space. So I'm going to have to go with clear and brief. Let me see if that works in my sentence. Because of limited space, most Twitter posts must be clear and brief. All right, it's time for us to practice. So number 1, Selena did extensive research for her paper. It took her several weeks. I need to activate my prior knowledge for this. So what do I know about research for a paper? Well, I know that research papers take a long time. I did a lot of them in high school and college. What evidence is provided in this sentence as to what extensive might mean? Several weeks. So extensive, several weeks. This is going to help me decide what extensive means. So Selena did extensive research for her paper. It took several weeks. Was it done quickly? Was it risky or large in amount? Okay, risky doesn't make sense in this case. There's nothing about chance when it comes to research. You're just looking for information that you could use to support your claim. Done quickly doesn't make sense either. It says that it took her several weeks. So large in amount would have to make the most sense. Obviously, if something takes a long time, that's a large amount. So let's see if it works. Selena did a large amount of research for her paper. It took her several weeks. Number 2. Before electricity, streets were illuminated by gaslight. I need to activate my prior knowledge at this point. So what do I already know? Well, I have a gaslight in my front yard. It is right by my walkway, and it lights up the whole walkway when we're out at night. What evidence is provided in this sentence as to what illuminated might mean? I have a couple. Electricity. So electricity must have something to do with illuminated because it says before electricity they were illuminated by gaslight. And I know that that gaslight is also a clue because I told you I have one of those lights in my front yard. So I'm going to go ahead and try to figure out what illuminate means. Does it mean lose, clean, or light up? Well, in this sentence, lose doesn't make any sense. Nothing is missing or lost. Clean. I don't know what that would have to do with a gaslight or electricity. So I think it's going to have to be light up. Let's see if that works. Before electricity, streets were lit up by gaslight. That makes sense. Number 3. Because there was no antidote for the snake's poison, the cat that was bitten died. What is my prior knowledge of this sentence? Well, I know poison can make someone sick or even cause death. What evidence is provided in the sentence? Cat died. I know that I would want to prevent a cat from dying if I could. So antidote in this sentence means a short story, cause, or remedy. Cause doesn't work because the snake poison would cause the cat to die, but it says there's no cause, so that doesn't make any sense. A short story. Well, I'm confusing antidote with anecdote, which is a short story, so they're trying to trick me there. I'm going to have to go with remedy. And the remedy is like a fix or a cure to stop something. Because there was no remedy for the snake's poison, the cat that was bitten died. That makes the most sense. Number 4, the basketball players were upset when the team bus broke down and they had to forfeit an important game. I need to start by activating my prior knowledge. So what do I already know about in this sentence? Well, I know that no one likes to lose. So number 4, the basketball players were upset when the team bus broke down and they had to forfeit an important game. The first thing I need to do is activate my prior knowledge. So what do I already know about in this sentence? Well, I know that teams, basketball teams, any team, are usually upset if they lose. I also know that teams lose if they don't show up for a game. So I'm looking for some evidence in here to support what forfeit might mean. So what evidence is provided in this sentence? Upset, definitely, and bus broke down. These are 2 pieces of information that are going to help me let me know what forfeit means. So what does forfeit mean? Give up, strengthen, or prove? Okay, strengthen doesn't work. They wouldn't strengthen an important game, especially if they're not there. Prove doesn't work either. They can't prove themselves and it doesn't really make sense in this sentence. Give up. Well, this makes sense because if the team bus broke down, they couldn't get there, and if they can't get there, they have to give up the game or forfeit the game. So let's try that. The basketball players were upset when the team bus broke down and they had to give up an important game. That makes sense. Last one, number 5. The night before running a marathon, Elsa fortifies herself by eating a large plate of pasta. I need to activate my prior knowledge here. Well, I have some prior knowledge because I actually coached cross country for 10 years. So I have an idea about what runners need to do, especially the nights before we're leading up to a marathon. I know that you don't want to eat anything in the morning or anything heavy in the morning because you'll see it back up again. I also know that starch gives the body a burst of energy, and we had lots of spaghetti dinners when I was coaching cross country. So what evidence is provided in this sentence? Well, running a marathon, definitely. And pasta. I know pasta is a starch. The night before running a marathon, Elsa fortifies herself by eating a large plate of pasta. Fortify means relax, strengthen, prove. Right, well, I don't think it's going to be proved because eating pasta is not going to prove that you're a good runner, and it doesn't really prove anything at this point by eating pasta. Relax, she probably should get some rest, but that has nothing to do with the plate of pasta. So strengthen is what I'm going to go with. So the night before running a marathon, Elsa strengthens herself by eating a large plate of pasta. Well, that's going to give her energy, and she's going to be running a marathon over 26 miles, so she's definitely going to need to strengthen herself. Hopefully you did well with these, and you're ready for your breakout tomorrow.
Hope you now understand what inference clues are. Please note that inference context clues require the reader to infer or make an informed guess at what the unknown word means. The non-specific clues provided in the text often spread over the sentence in which the unfamiliar word appears or over a number of sentences. Thus, look for clues over several words or sentences. I'm now going to show you a short film. Watch the movie, answer the questions that appear on the screen, try to make sense of the movie using the experience and knowledge you have gained through living and the visual clues.
ออกมานี่เลยนะไอ้ขี้ขโมยไหนดูสิเอาอะไรไปออกมานี่เอาไปทำอะไรเนี่ยฮะถามว่าเอาไปทำอะไรเอาไปให้แม่เดี๋ยวเจ๊แป๊บนึงแม่ป่วยเหรออย่าทำอย่างนี้อีกนะหมวยเกาเหลาจ๋อนั่งเลยครับนั่งเลยป๊าจัดไปอ้าวสั่งมาเร็วต่ออะไร ออกมานี่เลยนะไอ้ขี้ขโมยไหนดูสิเอาอะไรไปออกมานี่เอาไปทำอะไรเนี่ยฮะถามว่าเอาไปทำอะไรเอาไปให้แม่
เดี๋ยวเจ๊แป๊บนึงแม่ป่วยเหรอ
อย่าทำอย่างนี้อีกนะ
หมวยเกาเหลาจ๋อนั่งเลยครับนั่งเลย
ป๊า
จัดไปอ้าวสั่งมาเร็วต่ออะไร
hope you made sense of the movie using your knowledge and the clues given. All right, this is the end of session 7. What did we learn in this session? Yes, in this session, we learned how to use inference context clues to determine word meanings. In session 8, we will be looking at affixes context clues. Thank you. Hello, students. This is session 8 of the lesson on contextual clues. In this session, we are going to learn how to look for and use word part clues. What do you think are word parts? Word parts are building blocks of words. If you can understand how to identify word parts and what they mean, you can unlock the meaning of unfamiliar words. There are 3 different word parts: the root, the prefix, and the suffix. The root word has its own meaning. The prefix is attached to the beginning of the root and it changes the word's original meaning. The suffix is attached to the end of the root and it also changes the word's original meaning. Please note that many English words have been formed by combining parts of older English, Greek, and Latin words. If you know the meanings of some of these word parts, you can often guess the meaning of an unfamiliar English word, particularly in context. Let us now look at an example. Here is the word unhelpful. If we divide it into word parts, we have the root word help, the meaning of which I'm sure you know, the prefix un, which means not, and the suffix full, which means full of or able to. Thus, unhelpful means not able to or not willing to help. Let us now try the definition in a sentence. The workers were unhelpful. Replace the word unhelpful with your definition, that is not willing to provide help, and see if it makes sense. The workers were not willing to provide help or not willing to help. It makes sense, doesn't it? Let us look at more examples. Inelastic in sentence 1 is an example of a prefix attached to the root word. The prefix in, which is attached to the root word elastic, means not. Thus, inelastic means not elastic. Try replacing inelastic with your definition and then read the sentence. Demand is said to be not elastic if the quantity demanded responds only slightly to changes in price. Does it make sense? It does, doesn't it? Right. In the second sentence, relocated is an example of a prefix and a suffix attached to the root word. In this example, the prefix attached to the root word is re, and the suffix attached to the root word is ed. Re means again, and ed is used to form the past tense. Thus, relocated in this sentence means move back to the suburbs. Now try replacing relocated with your definition and then read the sentence. Employees who moved back to the suburbs during the pandemic, especially those who left the cities for the suburbs, are wondering whether to remain in the suburbs or to move back to the cities. The sentence makes sense, doesn't it? So you see, if you know the meaning of some of these word parts, you can often guess the meaning of an unfamiliar English word, particularly in context. But please keep in mind that words do not always have a prefix and a suffix, and that word analysis is not always enough to unlock the exact meaning of a difficult word you encounter in a reading passage. But often, along with context, it will help you to understand the general meaning of the word so that you can continue reading without stopping to use a dictionary. All right, this brings us to the end of session 8. In session 9, we will be doing some practice activities. Thank you. Hello, students. This is session 9 of the lesson on contextual clues. In this session, what you will be doing is trying out some practice activities. The activities have already been uploaded to the LMS. I suggest that you attempt them because they will provide you practice in contextual clues. This activity is from the course manual. It is activity 7 in the manual. What you have to do is to match each contextual clue on the left with the appropriate explanation on the right. As for practice activities 2, 3, 4, and 5, you are expected to read the text given, underline the context clue or clues most useful in decoding the highlighted words, and then complete the tables based on the information given in the texts. In this text, the word that has been highlighted is enterprising. Which context clue is going to be most useful in decoding the word enterprising? This is the table that I was referring to. Please complete the table based on the information given in the text. I have given an example to guide you. Please refer to the Word document uploaded to the LMS. In this text, the word highlighted is dynamic. Which context clue is going to be most useful in decoding the word dynamic? Do not forget to complete the table as well. In this text, the words that have been highlighted are microeconomics and macroeconomics. Which context clues do you think are going to be most useful in decoding the words microeconomics and macroeconomics? Complete the table as well. In this text, the two words that have been highlighted are scarcity and the problem of scarcity. Which context clues are going to be most useful in decoding the words scarcity and the problem of scarcity? Complete the table based on the information given in the text. This activity is also from the course manual. Read the following sentences and define the word in bold font based on the contextual clues. These are the words in bold font. Then identify which of the 4 types of clues is used. Please log in to LMS and try out these activities. The answers to the activities will be discussed later. We have almost come to the end of the lesson on contextual clues. In session 10, we are going to reflect on what we have been doing so far. All right, now tell me, what should you do when you do not know the meaning of a word? Yes, what you should first and foremost do is to check if you can unlock the meaning of the word using contextual clues. What are some of the major types of context clues that we have looked at? Definition, explanation clues, example clues, antonym, synonym clues, comparison, contrast clues, punctuation clues, inference clues, and word parts clues. You must have by now realized that being able to guess the meaning of unknown words from the context is also a useful exam strategy because you are not allowed to use a dictionary in the examination hall. However, please keep in mind that there are limitations to the use of contextual clues. Firstly, it is not always possible to work out the exact meaning of a word from context. Secondly, the text may not contain sufficient clues for you to get the meaning of a word. Well, I don't expect you to understand the lesson on contextual clues just by watching the video once. You might have to watch them a few times before you clearly understand the lesson. According to research, it is only through multiple exposure that concepts and skills become embedded in your long-term memory. I urge you, therefore, to apply the techniques that I have taught you while reading to understand your text better. If you have any questions about contextual clues, please feel free to contact me. My email address is mufidairshad@sjb.ac.lk. Finally, I would appreciate hearing your thoughts on this lesson. On contextual clues, could you please fill in the Google form? The link is given here. Your suggestions will be taken into account to make adjustments to my teaching for better learning outcomes. Thank you. I would like to end this lesson on a lighter note. Watch, sing along, and enjoy. Thank you.
My teacher told me to read the story. I got stuck on a word on page 1. I wasn't sure exactly what to do, but I wasn't having any fun. My teacher gave me some brilliant advice when she said to read the rest of the stuff. I suddenly understood what that mystery word meant, and I no longer had to feel stuck. It's not so tough, use the context. It's not so rough, use your clues. It's not so tough, use the context. It's not so rough, use your clues. Sometimes the clues come as examples, sometimes they come as synonyms. Sometimes the clues tell just the opposite, sometimes they're even definitions. It's not so tough, use the context. It's not so rough, use your clues. It's not so tough, use the context. It's not so rough, use your clues. When a word in a sentence simply leaves you hanging and your knowledge base just isn't enough, when you have to infer beyond the printed page, don't get yourself all in a hub. It's not so tough, use the context. It's not so rough, use your clues. It's not so tough, use the context. It's not so rough.